But we'll have to figure out a way, and I have already reached out to the music department for CMS to say we want to try to make sure our kids are still getting a good music experience and not being slighted by the situation. So that is something we're working on.
Were there other music programs for the kids?
There's planned to be 2 more events actually. We were still going to do single grade levels, so we were going to do, one was going to be kindergarten and one was going to be first grade. So we were going to do our lower grade classes. But right now I have to meet with Ms. Chapman to see exactly how we're going to address that. I don't want to put the program completely on Ms. Chapman because she is working in 2 different schools, and I don't know how feasible that is, because the other thing is she is not actually meeting with all the kids in that grade level. So that's going to be a work in progress, but we have 2 more planned. I think it's first grade, then kindergarten is the last one. But yeah, that is another challenge that we'll have to face. Not a massive priority in the big picture of things, but it is something that people have come to expect, so we're going to try to make it happen if possible. I think Ms. Chapman's up for the challenge. I'm more concerned about Ms. Chapman doing it than she is. So we're going to try to talk about it and see if we can come up with something that would allow the kids to continue to perform at the PTO meetings without having a full-time music teacher in the room. Yeah. Anything else?
I was approached by someone and wasn't able to answer the question, so will you answer it for me?
Okay.
What does Winston do?
And what's his title? Officer Douglas, that's Winston's name, Officer Douglas. He is a Cornelius police department person. He's a regular officer for the Cornelius Police Department, so when he's not working here, he works for the town of Cornelius. He is part of what the Cornelius Police Department does for us. Cornelius Elementary School, Huff, and Bailey, I think, are the 4 schools that are impacted in the town of Cornelius. They pay for these officers to be in the schools. They're basically, for lack of a better word, our resource officer. In middle and high schools, there's something called resource officers that are assigned to schools through Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Elementary schools do not have that. The town of Cornelius believes that's important, so that's one of his jobs, just to be visible at the school. The other job he does for our school is he works with our 5th graders in the DARE program. So every week he goes in and teaches lessons to 5th graders about drug awareness. So those are his really 2 big tasks. He is also my liaison if anything happens at the school in regard to anything that could be considered criminal. He's my sounding board in that regard. If we have to do criminal charges or anything of that nature, he's involved in that process with me as well. So his main job is really an officer for the town of Cornelius, but when he's assigned those during the day, he's either here, he's at Bailey, or he's at Huff, and he kind of just rotates through at different times. He does not direct traffic for us. He's not involved in that process at all. If there's any other issues with a parent or things like that, he does get involved with that. He has had that. He has had to get involved with parents over the last couple of years of certain incidents and things of that nature. But for the most part, he's here as a resource for us, and just to really try to build a relationship between kids and officers versus having this them versus us attitude that you see sometimes with kids.
Thank you.
Yes.
I wanted to touch base with you regarding something that was discussed in the very first coffee chat this year about, and I know that there were several other parents that had their concerns, but obviously the amount of people has dwindled down significantly. So regarding recess time outside and how the kids are grouped and how they're not allowed to play with everybody in their grade level, was anything ever, did anything else ever come from that as far as, since I was not the only one that had the concern?
No, it was my decision to keep them separated. We have them in different areas of the playground for management. I've told the teachers they can rotate what class they're with if they want to, meaning that there are still going to only be 2 classes on one playground, but if it's say Mr. O's class and my class 1 week or 1 month, and then they switch to Mr. O and somebody else's class the next month, that's fine. It's a management issue. To have 200 4th graders or 200 3rd graders in one certain area is not safe. It's not able to manage, and it's also hard when it's dealing with the social piece. So we try to keep that separated. That means it's also easier for teachers to focus on their classes versus socializing. So we split them up, and that's part of the reason we have the places we have. So you can't just have a free reign of who can blend in with whoever. I just don't feel comfortable with it. So teams can, if they want to, kind of rotate that if they'd like. I would doubt they probably do. It's a 25-minute, 30-minute block of time. I mean, but I would allow them to do that if they wanted to. But we're not going to disallow just kind of free flow. There's too many issues. We get the majority of our problems from the playground. And that's because kids struggle with socialization, certain kids need to be kept away from each other, and it makes it a lot easier for us to do when we have them in separate locations. It makes it very difficult when everybody's in the kind of the same place and they can kind of go where they want to. So that's the reason behind it. It's not a dictatorship kind of thing, it's more of a safety thing to me, because the reality is, really the majority of the issues we have come from playground. Something that goes awry over sportsmanship or things of that nature. So we try to just keep the crowds to a minimum.
I have to say, I totally agree.
Thank you. Anything else?
Regarding the AR and the RAS,
Yes.
this gentleman was talking about earlier, if AR is not pushed any, really, what is the purpose of the STAR testing on the teacher standpoint?
Well, STAR testing and AR are completely different. STAR testing is an independent comprehension test.
Okay, but the level that comes from the STAR test you use for AR.
But you also use it on any book. Basically, it's a readability level. So when you go to the library, you can ask a librarian, my child is reading at about the first grade, 5th month, and they can look at a readability level and see where your kids are at. And it's also a good way to make sure you're checking growth. So as a teacher, as we teach throughout the year and we're looking at reading comprehension and where kids are at, if they start off the year at 0.8, which means they're basically a kindergartner in the 8th month, and at the end of the year they're at a 2, that shows us that this child has really strengthened the skills in that area. But it's only one data point. So we try to use, the STAR test also can be massively inflated, because I've seen kids that are performing way higher than what they're doing in the classroom. So you look at STAR tests, you look at Fontes and Pinnell, you may look at reading A to Z if the teacher uses it, not everybody uses it, and then you look at what's going on in the classroom, and then you try to look at all those data points together, and you hope then there's some kind of synergy between them. Sometimes it's not. And then you also can throw the formatives in there that would really messes everything up, because some kids will come in and score the 30th percentile on the formative exam, which is not very good, but they're reading on the 5th grade level and they're in the 3rd grade. All right, why is that? We have to figure out what the kid is struggling with. So even though it does tie into AR, and some of our children still do AR, and they're big on it, so are the parents, so we still have it, but it's more focused on, to me, readability. So when you go in, a parent can have a conversation with a librarian and kind of say, this is the kind of book my child should be reading. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys.